Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to explain this before we go on. I said experience interacting with people most times when they come to learn technical come to certain tech trainings, what people forget to do is to try and say to themselves, where do I want to play in this technology? And that's why most times people are not able to get the value of certain trainings that they go. And what you tend to see them do is, for every time there's a training somewhere, they're just hopping on every boot camp, every event, every free session. They're just going, taking in so much. And at the end of the day, they feel frustrated because they can't bring out what they are. So what I always say to people is, you need to be able to understand where you want to fit in. Whenever you go into a program, try and say, what do I want to take out of this, and how is it going to tie into what I want to do? So I'll give an example. We're learning about the compliance administrator, the Microsoft Purview. Not everybody's role would require them to be the ones who will have to configure, administer, and manage. No, not everybody's role will be the ones who will have to design and do the integration. Not everybody's role will be involved in doing the role-based access control. However, you want to understand the whole concept so that wherever you fit in, currently in your job role, or as you aspire to build a career in this part, you can define what you want to do. So I see people who say they want to do GRC worrying their head about how to configure, and I'm like, it's okay to understand the concept, but if you're more of a GRC person, what you want to do is to say, how can this help me? How can I utilize the trainable classifiers to be able to make sure that we are compliant with a particular? So I will expect that that's the kind of configuration that they're interested in, so that if they sit in an organization that is using it, they can say to the tech people to say, this is what I need you to do. I know we use Office 365. I'm trying to find if we have PII data in this XYZ SharePoint site. So you see that everything I'm saying, I'm not configuring. I'm engaging a team to tell them what to do. At that point, you'll be probably speaking with a data protection architect who you'll be saying, and this is what I want you to do. You know, can we enable trainable classifiers that can help us identify PI, or can we create an event sensitive information type that can help us identify XYZ, just so that I can have a report and show that we're compliant to this. You have spoken authoritatively because you understand the solution, but you're not necessarily the one going to implement it. And again, why I say this is that many organizations have division of labor. So while you're learning this in the whole entity, to help yourself practice this and appreciate what you're learning, try to say, where does this fit in for me? Am I a solutions architect? Am I an administrator? Am I an identity security person? So I want to understand the roles that people need to have to be able to do what they need to do. Am I a DPO, a data protection officer, where I need to identify different types of data types, enforce review? Am I a compliance person, the GRC, where I define, you know, do a bit of risk assessment and management, so that you will know how to utilize the learnings. If not, what's going to happen is, where you're practicing and one part is not, you're finding yourself not understanding, you're going to be beating yourself up, thinking that it wasn't worth your time, or you are not understanding, or this thing is not for me. Meanwhile, the way you want to learn it is not how it's going to be relevant for you in the course of the work. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, very well.
Okay. For those of you who have never worked with Microsoft 365, like I said, and that's why I'm reiterating this, is that some of you will never have to work with M365, because either in the organization, they would have very disciplined segregation of duty, and no matter what your role is, you might not have to work with M365 from a configuration perspective. But to go into it, we have you log into your Microsoft 365, go to your admin portal, and then you navigate to your compliance mode, and this will open up. Purview now has, Microsoft is going to deprecate the compliance dashboard that you're seeing now and give us the new Purview dashboard. So I'm just going to navigate to the new one. And so in the new one, you see the different cloud platforms that Purview currently has integration with. And the modules that are active for us on Purview. So we have the data catalog. This is where you find and create data across your organizations, plug them into. So if you're pulling data from Purview, from SQL and all the rest, you can create your data catalog here, especially for people who are in Power BI. When they want to pull data from different sources, you can create a catalog for them, just so that you can plug in Purview into what they're doing and still append those policies. Won't be going into that. Let's start from the basic one. So information protection. Remember, we've started by saying know your data. Yeah, so this is how the dashboard looks when you go to information protection. Under information protection, you want to look at your sensitivity labels, right? In your sensitivity labels, you want to create your label that will enable you to identify data. Now, the first thing to do actually with Purview is to enable auditing. Most times, once you go into the Purview, if you for the first time, you just see it will be a bar here, but I've enabled it, so it's gone off. It will just ask you that you should turn on auditing. The reason is so that you can keep track of who is doing what and who is making what changes. So that's the first thing to do whenever you land on the Purview dashboard. Once you do it the first time, you never have to do it. Another thing to do is to assign role base. So that's why if you see in my slide that I put up earlier, I talked about the identity. So when it comes to data security, you still have somebody who is the identity security or identity security architect in the organization who will define people's roles and say, oh, your job is to be able to do this, and then go into the role base and create different roles, peculiar to the data security project or function in the organization, and then assign these roles based on what's been agreed that people need to do. The compliance administrator role allows you to be able to create policies, create labels, and make those changes. So you will want to be assigned the compliance administrator role. For those of you who, when you logged in, you couldn't see certain things, if you remember, we had to go back to the people who had the admin and they gave you compliance administrator role. That's why you can now see certain things on your dashboard for those who already have access to the project portal. So it's not one of those roles that just gets assigned to you. It needs to be defined that this is what you want to do, and then someone who is responsible for role-based access management in your organization would now assign you that role. So you typically will see that on the, permit me to show you. This is where you have all the roles, and then whoever is your identity person would come here, and then you need to be assigned, the compliance administrator. So you can see you manage regulatory requirements in discovery cases, maintain data governance for locations, identity, then the compliance data administrator. So this role is very important to be assigned to you for you to be able to do what you need to do on the compliance module. Again, we're not in the identity class. So for me, I feel like if you go to an organization, you would never, as a data security person, you would never be told to do this yourself, because in security, there's segregation of duties. So there's a team that would definitely be responsible for assigning roles. All you'll be saying is that for me to do my job, I need to be assigned to this role. You will never have to do this, right? So do you want to know how to do it? Yes, because of your lab. But in reality, this is not a function that you want to do. So once you click here, you just add user, identify your identity, whatever it is, and then add yourself there. And that's it. You automatically have access to the compliance admin. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to manage sensitive information types. Right? Can we still remember what sensitive information types is and why we use them? So let's take a case study. A company wants to make sure that personal information of customers, right, are not sent outside, or personal information of his staff, for instance, is not sent outside, right? So what you want to do, in this instance, let us take employee ID as a sensitive information, just like your BVN, right? And remember when I gave the example of driver's license, so we'll look at that too. So sensitive information type is you as an organization saying to yourself what is sensitive for us, right? If BVN is a sensitive information type and you're like, if people share people's BVN outside this organization, it has an impact, or it has a way it can create some form of data leakage or some form of penalty for us, that's a sensitive information. If employee ID is shared outside the organization, now sometimes you're not even creating sensitive information type because of outside the organization. It could be within a department. Probably that data that they shared there, the moment it goes outside that department, it becomes a data leakage, right? So that's where we begin to look at things like in the last module, we talked about information barriers. You can say, if this thing goes outside this place, outside this team, outside this department, it's already a data leakage. It doesn't necessarily have to be outside the organization or shared with third party. There are certain information that should stay within a department, within a group of people. And so the moment it's taken out, so those kind of things to lead to you creating sensitive information type. Now, just to understand it, we take employee ID as a sensitive information type. And we want to now create a sensitive information type category for employee ID. So we go to sensitive labels and we go to classifiers. Let's create the sensitive information type first before the label. Again, I've said this. There's over, I think, 100 or 300. Yeah, you can see 390. Okay, I've created a couple. I think it's about 300 default sensitive information type. If you're working for an organization and you have a task, don't kill yourself. Just search if what you're looking for exists and modify, rather than try to invent the wheel, because you only just be stressing yourself. Play around it, see the way they created their patterns for detection, and then you can now use it to customize your own and learn from there. That's, for me, that's how I learn, right? I don't like to reinvent the wheel. If a solution provider has invested in creating templates, why do I want to reinvent? I can customize it, I can copy it, customize it, rather than start afresh and be struggling with what's not working. In this instance, I want to create our own custom, so we come here and say create sensitive info type. Sorry, we'll be having some lag because of internet, and you can call it anything. So that's why, again, I said that there are people who their job in data protection, in data security, is to define. The person who is implementing, your job is not to do all this define. Your own is, they would have given you a service ticket and said, create this. So they would have given you the name, the description. In an ideal world, in a typical work environment, that's how it is. You have either the data protection officer or the compliance officer or the data management team would have sit down to define the different sensitive information type, and then they will now send to you as the administrator to implement. So we could call this, someone should give me a name. One habit I like when I used to still be in the world of creating things, I like to always put description. Sometimes I put my ticket number. So if you work in a proper corporate environment, you know that you can't make certain changes without a change ticket, either a service ticket or a change ticket. One of the habits I like to do is always put them in the description. So if it was a service ticket or a change ticket, I like to put the ID there and put the date. Reason is just so that if anybody bumps on it and needs to understand, if they take it, they can go there and then see more details about what happens. It's just a personal work habit that I have. Okay, so now we need to create a pattern remember we said that there are different types of pattern. There's the key dictionary, there's the red expression. So you can see it. We have the regular expression, we have the key list, we have the keyword dictionary, we have functions. These are different ways that you can use to detect. Now somebody will say, what does this mean? To be honest with you, I only know what regular expression, keyword dictionary, and key list means. I don't know what functions are, but I know that there are type of ways that you can use to detect data. Right, so that's why I say that in some instances you don't necessarily have to kill yourself understanding this thing. If you spend time playing with it, and your expertise is in creating what's the word, logics. So those of you who are very good at maths, right, you're good at creating logics, you know, dy, dx, you'll be good at using functions, you understand it better. I'm not good at all of those things, but I understand, you know, sequencing, so I'll pay attention to key list words. Now the challenge with the pattern you use is that just so that you can reduce your false positives. So most times when you use logics and expressions, they are very close to perfect versus keywords and key list, because keywords can be, you can have employee in a document that is not necessarily related to what you wanted to detect. So that's why you have to study and practice so that you know, okay, which type of pattern will help me get the exact kind of detection that I want. But again, for emphasis of just understanding how this thing works, we would use very simple regular expression. Now you can give your regular expression ID again, anything. So we can say here, regular expressions too are logics. Most times the developers who create these things have always let you know what type of regular expression. So you can see in the driver's license one, Jonathan has shared some documents. We'll go through that one again after what I'm doing, just so we see it. And in the portal, somebody had given us the regular expression that can enable you to identify driver's license. So to the lady, I don't know if the lady who asked us about PowerShell in one of the classes here, that's those kind of things. I just create a notepad and I save it there. I don't worry myself trying to cram and pour those things, because they are not my expertise. My expertise is to know how to create and detect data, but I need somebody who has expertise in giving me the expression. So for every knowledge base or article I come across that gives me expressions I can use, I just save them, and that's how I do with PowerShell. And then I use them over time. As I use them over time, I begin to understand their logic and their pattern, and so before you know it, I'm now able to even interpret. But I might not be able to 100% sit down from scratch and develop and become an expert, because I don't want to. That's not my core. But I know how to use what I want to get what I want. So again, for regular expressions, we just use a simple expression that talks about the employee number has alphabets, and the alphabets are capital. That's what this means. And it's in the first three characters are this alphabet, and following it is numbers that can be between 0 to 9. And I think this means, not too sure what this means, but I think this means it's up to 6 characters. Now word match or string matches, I'm saying you, so you can even see that the moment if you change this to word match, you see that it will give you error, because in regular expression you're using a string, you're not using words. So you can see the moment I switch to word match, it scattered it here, right? Because regular expressions are string. So in those kind of instances, because you don't need to now worry yourself, or just now anytime you're using regular expression is a string match. It's never going to be a word match for a regular expression. Sorry, I should have copied that before clicking. Please interfere and ask me questions if you need to, because that's the essence for today. Today is hands-on. It's not for me to be talking. The person, I don't know, my volume is on the highest, but I'm struggling to hear people today.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You said?
Okay, so I was using an earpiece. So I said you are using capital letters. Is it case insensitive? Like the A to Z?
Yes, so again, like I said, regular expressions are not supposed to be crammed, right? If it's like commands, it's like someone that is coding, if you know what is. So what I am saying here, the reason why I put this A to Z is that I am saying that this data type that I want to identify, the first three characters are capital. That's why I'm putting this here.
Okay. So if they are small letters, you would have to use A to Z or write something that would check for both
Yes,
capital
or if it is not case
letters.
sensitive, I will put A to Z, then I'll come here again and I'll do small A to Z.
Okay. All right.
So what this is saying here is it could either be capital, it could be small, it could be a mixed match, right?
Okay, can you increase the screen a bit? I can barely see it.
Okay, hold on.
Thank
Is
you.
it better? Is it better?
Yes, it's
Okay.
better.
All right. Yeah. So again, this regular expression I'm writing to you, I copied it and I saved it somewhere. It's just that because I've used it over and over, I understand what it means. But I cannot create regular expressions from beginning to end. I've used regular expressions for over 10 years. It's not a field I want to master in. I've had to troubleshoot with it because some solutions are very good at, as you're creating your expression, it will tell you to test. Like when I used to use Citrix Netscaler, the regular expressions were very cool in what I wanted, but it will allow me test my expressions and all of that. So I could play around and practice, but I'm not going to come and I felt like it was almost similar to coding, so I didn't want to worry my head. I just learn the patterns, understand what they say, and then if I go to another environment, I try it and it works for me. That's how I do it. But if you're very good with, sequencing, logic, if you have skill set around there, sequencing, logic, you could play around this. And the good thing is, if you come to an environment that have very unique kind of data, you could now create regular expressions for it because you know how to use them. Okay, so I'm saying...
Sorry, are there no generic regular expression you can just copy and paste?
There are. That's what I'm saying, that this is a very generic one. There are. As long as that generic is tied to the data that you want to identify. Don't forget, you're not just using regular expression because you like. Remember, we're trying to identify a particular data. So we said in this company, they have a policy that says that you should not share staff. So I'm creating a fictitious scenario. I'm saying in this company, they have a policy that says don't share staff sensitive data. And now they have identified that employee ID is a sensitive data. So they've come to us to say, how do we protect the environment to ensure that people don't share people's sensitive information? Example, employee ID. So now for us to be able to detect employee ID in the organization conversations, we are creating a sensitive information type called employee ID. Are you getting it? So to now detect it, we're saying that this company's employee ID has capital letter in the first three characters and has numeric following it in about 6 characters, and that's it. So that's what we want to use as a regular. It could be anything. It could be that the company has a mix of capital and small at the first 3, and so you want to now introduce the next bracket here, which is the small letters small letters. Yeah. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we've created this. We left it as screen match. Then we select done. Sorry. So you can see here, we've created the first expression here, right? We can come now to say, well, what does character proximity mean? It means that you can find this within XYZ. So if you find this pattern that I have created within this set of characters, then there's possibility that it's this sensitive information type. Again, Follow me. That's why I say there's lots of if then statements in creating pattern. So the pattern is saying, I have given you an expression that says that you will see first three characters should be capital, and following it should be numeric in 6 characters. But remember, somebody could be typing something very random within that. So we're saying if you see this within the first 300 characters, that's here. But I can change it to 100. But you could just assume that, okay, where's the typical place if somebody is pasting someone's employee number? They won't really put it in a long sentence. So it's either somebody copied and pasted it somewhere, or it's in the first. So you have to think about the character proximity of that sensitive information type and use it. So that's why I said that the person who is implementing and the people who define policies are 2 different people, right? So most times if you want to build skill in, I know how to configure purview to detect, you play around with this. But you have people who, I want to know how to define this thing so I can tell the people to implement it. If you know the 2, it's an added advantage anyway.
Sorry,
Okay.
I don't think I understand that concept of characters.
I'm intentionally typing gibberish. I just want to explain something. I want to look for a way to explain it better, so that's why. Now, this is a notepad document that I've created, and I have put employee ID here. But this notepad document, right, has only 57 characters. So I am saying that when the policy goes out and it's trying to action and is using my pattern, beyond just looking for this, it's going to look for it within 100 character proximity or 300 character, because in my head I'm saying somebody is not going to waste time and write 1,000 characters and after 1,000 characters carry and paste an employee ID and put there. I'm saying that if somebody was going to use employee ID in a document or copy and paste it somewhere, it will be within the first 100 characters or 300 characters or 500 characters. I'm saying that's the concept of proximity. You are supposed to think that within what character proximity will this data be used. So in this example we're giving, we're saying that within 100 character proximity, we're expecting that you'll find this kind of data within every 100 character proximity.
But what if it doesn't get to 100? Isn't that still
within 100? So for instance, this is 57. So if I use this document, it will work because it's not up to 100. Within 100 is what I have used.
And if it's more?
So I'm saying,
no, I'm
if
just
it's
saying
more, it's not a. In this my example, I am saying that I know that my organization will not find a document where employee ID is used. I'm saying that's where you define what is relevant to the organization. If it is more, then it won't work. If your organization has data that is beyond 100 characters, I don't know if you're getting. That's why you are the one to put what you want here.
Okay, I guess I'll just come back, outside this class to understand this.
No, I want us to understand because that's what the hands-on is. I'm saying the concept of character proximity is you trying to make sure that your pattern is able to detect. So you are thinking, where would they use this sensitive information? Oh, they can use it in a chat. So if they use it in a chat, they can paste 1,000 words in a chat just to hide employee ID. Again, for our example, if I'm doing credit card credit card number is already long, so I won't even say 100 character. I will increase my character proximity because credit card number in itself is long. But in this example, an employee ID that we have used, we're saying is only 6 characters in the employee ID. So I'm saying that you would find this within every 100 character proximity, because the sensitive information type I'm trying to detect here is just a 6 character ID. But if I was using like a PAN by default is already 14. So my brain would be like, it can be beyond 100. So I might increase this to 300. Just so that I am very sure when the thing is scanning, it can actually detect this sensitive information within the documents that is going to be checking it across.
Okay, using the credit card example you just gave, assuming there's a 16-digit credit card number, you group it in 4 numbers each and put maybe a word between those numbers, will the system still detect it?
Again, in credit card, you know, credit card has a sequence. So if we go and look at the pattern of credit card, it's no, remember, this is the main guy detecting, is your pattern. Your character proximity is just helping you to be more effective. Whether you break credit card in 4, because credit cards have a sequence, it is Visa is 4 something something, this thing, it will detect it whether you want to split it into container. I'm sorry, whether you want to split it into, so let's give an example. 4, 6, 7, 8. Sorry. And they have a number that they end in. So let's take it that this is a MasterCard, right? Ideally, it would have been this way, right? It would have been long like this. I don't know if this is up to 14 or so, or 16. How many is a... Okay, we'll worry about that. Now, let's assume this is a correct credit card number. What I hear you say is that what if the person came and inside the document splitted it like this? Right?
No, actually put maybe like a word or something, maybe put A, C after, yeah, something like that.
That's what I'm saying, that in credit card, right, you are just seeing its number. The logic behind every credit card formed is not, like, for instance, if I take this is not a credit card because there's no logic here, even though I started with 4. There's a logic behind how your credit cards are created. So the moment you input it inside a document, it doesn't matter where you put things inside, it will see the pattern in the logic. It will see that it's not just a random number. The sequence of that number is following a credit card logic. So at that point, it will match it as a credit card data. Even if the person just was coincidentally putting numbers together, which you and I agree that it's very rare why you just create numbers. There's a logic to credit card numbers. And so if you take a credit card number and you impute it inside here, when you're done, can you help me bring that black box? Let me look for one of my expired credit card. So we'll try. I'll get an expired credit card so I can share. Because we're sharing my screen, I would have put a real life one, but let them get me an expired one, and we'll try that too. We'll put a credit card, look for an expression to detect credit card, scatter it the way you have said, and then let's see if it will detect it. I like this kind of challenge. So let's make progress while they get me an expired credit card. But what I'm just trying to explain here with character proximity is that you need to think about what are the ways this data can be hidden, or what are the ways this data is used, so that I can be sure that I am actually detecting this data. So you can even see that beyond character proximity, you can check here where it says, that says, so I'm not using character proximity now, I'm saying anywhere in the document.
So please, before you go ahead, just to give you more context. So for the character proximity, is it basically like from the first word? So you are saying within 100 characters from the first word, or within 300 characters from the first word?
Absolutely, that's what it means.
Okay, okay.
Like, for instance, look at this gibberish I put here. It's made up of 82 characters.
Oh, okay.
And then that's why you have this option where you are saying, I don't want you to worry about character as long as it sees it anywhere in the document. So that goes back to what I was explaining to you, that you're the one that will decide. That's where the people who their job is, people who fall under this category, the non-technical data people, they're the ones who define, they're the ones who develop, they're the ones who will say, there's no way employee ID, somebody will just take it and hide it. Like, if they want to use character proximity, most times if you open a document, employee ID is always at the top. So I'm saying that, remember, data classification, you're trying to protect your company data that they're using on a day-to-day. First of all, before you even think about whether somebody is trying to steal information, right? The first thing is, HR has sensitive information. We're supposed to be compliant with our staff data. And HR uses documents that have our employee number. Most times, your employee number is always at the top. So if an organization decides to go with character proximity, it's because they know that the templates that collect this employee ID, within the first 100 or first 300, the employee ID is there. But if it's an organization that says, we don't know where it's being put, so we're going to say anywhere in the document, it's all about the people who their job is to define. They're the ones that worry about, should we use character proximity or should we use anywhere in the document? Because they want to make sure that they're able to detect it. Does that help now?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So anyone is fine. And then now another thing you want to do is you want to add a supporting element. Again, all of these are just so that your detection is accurate. You don't have lots of false positive. So if I was creating this and targeting it to just HR, I can come and say, if you see this in any of these groups, maybe there's a particular group, or if it's organization-wise, right, I can come and say, okay, I want it to look for things like, so even when it sees this pattern, to further, so it's like saying, if this and this and this, then it is what I want. So for those who did computer science, when we're doing all those, so it's like saying, if our regular expression, which is the first one we've done. Now, the supporting the and. So if this within is our character proximity, and is our supporting document. So that's what we're doing. So I'm saying if the regular expression I put is within 100 and now supporting document, then detect it as the sensitive information. So under this supporting document, I want to put employee, I want to put maybe ID, I want to put and you can see I put them under the case insensitive. If you are very sure that, okay, the way we do this in our organization, there's no way that field would be case insensitive, then you can put it here. Now I know that it can be anything. It's not case sensitive, so I'm putting it here. Again, all of this is anything. It could be your naming convention in the organization. All right. So this whole place is taking this summary. This is what I'm saying. I'm saying that I want to detect a sensitive information type. I've given it an ID, right? With this expression, within 300 character proximity, or you can select anywhere in the document, and supporting, and if this keyword employee, any of them is there, and then when I'm done, I will select create. So this is the summary of what I've created. And that's it. You've created a sensitive information type.
What was the confidence level?
Come again.
The confidence level, what exactly does it do? Me selecting high, low, or what does it do for my SIT?
It's how I show in the compliance policy, right? Look at it. The explanation. It's what I show in the compliance policy dashboard, that this is very high. I'm very confident about the pattern that I've created, and it's very high. So it's like doing risk metrics, high, low. Like, I'm very sure about this pattern, and I'm confident about what I want, or the detection that is going to get.
Okay, so the confidence is based on the SIT creation you did, that you are sure it will detect, not that the information you are creating is a high confidence data.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, for those who didn't stay back, we'll create one more. So let's create for the driver's license that we talked about during the week. I just want us to create a couple before we move stuff coming back. So let's say are you on the call, Jonathan? I just need that reg edit. Sorry, let me get the regular expression for driver's license.
Hi, Joy. Yes, I'm on the call.
Can you drop it for me? Yeah, just drop it on the chat. I'll pick it up. Thank you.
Just a moment. Yeah.
You can pick it faster from the Discord channel. Okay, so while he's giving us that, again, we want to create for driver's license. Driver's license is a unique ID. It has a pattern. So we want to use regular expression again for it. So we're lucky to find somebody online who already had created the regular expression for the Nigerian driver's license in the sequence strategy. So those who deal with database more can understand this. Like, you could say our employee ID will always be, in some organizations, you see that your employee ID is either the first three letters of your surname, and then maybe the day you joined, and something else. Those are ways that you can now use to identify the expression, the logic behind how that ID is generated, so that you can use that same logic to detect it without having to worry about typing these things. Sorry, Jonathan, have you dropped it?
I just did on Discord.
Oh, sorry. I don't have Discord.
Okay.
I don't have Discord. Yes, please. Yeah, so that I can show you, like, so that everybody is part of it. Discord, they will be navigating with Discord, and
I have dropped it on the chat.
yeah. Okay, so let's go. Good. So this is a regular expression that we got from somebody who was even trying to do something totally different, but it detects the Nigerian driver's license. So let's use this one now. Oh, jeez. You don't even necessarily have to do this if you're very sure of your expression. Now, do we understand the function of sensitive information type and how to create them? So we can be here creating as many as we want. It's fine. If we look at credit card, I don't have to create that. I think I've done one in test. So you can see this is the template one. This is my custom one I created from here. Let's assume I wanted to use the credit card sensitive information type that existed. Once I click on it, it opens for me. I will click here, copy. So if you want to duplicate a sensitive information type that exists, and you don't have to, once you click on copy, it will duplicate it for you, and then you can now customize. Yes, so I can customize it myself. So I can say credit card. So you can see that this one that they have covers for all these type of cards, right? So even if it's carrying American Express, that's what I'm saying, that is the logic. You can see that it has a logic for MasterCard, it has a logic for Visa card, which is what we use in this part of the world in Nigeria. So I can use this. So I can put it debit. We have credit cards too in Nigeria, so I can review their patterns. So you can see, let's see. So let's look at their own. So they're saying, let's start from the beginning. So they used function, right? Function processors. They didn't use reg expressions. Okay. Would have to go and look at. It says functions are used to find text that's formatted in a specific way. For example, function credit card looks for 14 to 16 digit credit cards that can be formatted or unformatted, which must pass the long test. So the point is, as long as it's using the 14 to 16 digit function at which they create the card, right, whether you formatted it or not, it's going to be able to detect it, right? So in this instance, I don't have to worry about the logic that detects credit card. They've done it, they've followed that logic, and they've put it. All I have to do is put a credit card that has expired. So I will create a document. I found one, and we'll see if this logic detects it. Again, they've put here for supporting, they want to use. For supporting, they are using case insensitive. So all of this is because of Chinese. Let's go here. Yeah. So they are using card verification. If you see any of these words, right? PIN block, security number. There's so many words. You can see this covers both English and non-English.
But your voice is faster than what you're showing, so it's kind of making it hard to follow up.
Okay, I'll go back. I'll go back first. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I sent a chat before, but I had to. It appears you've not read it. The test is a bit it's tiny for me. Like I'm still struggling to see most of these things. Please, can you increase the font size a bit from your end, please?
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. All right, let me go back. It was called to my attention. I'm a bit fast, so. Let's try. So let's go back here. So I have showed us how to create custom sensitive information type. Now I'm saying that if I have a sensitive information type that is global, like for instance, credit card, debit card, I don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, trying to start from beginning to create it as a custom and worry about the logic that will enable me detect that type of sensitive information type. I can leverage on the templates. There are over 300 templates. So what do? I want to look for a sensitive information type relating to card. So I can come here and say card, and you can see that I can see so many card details. I'm looking for a central one, so I'm going to look at this one that says credit card, and once I click on it, it would open. Once it opens, I say copy because I want to duplicate it. And it's copied it, and it says, do I want to edit it now? I say yes. If I say no, it will just take me back to the screen. I want to edit it, so I give it my own name, and I'm saying let's call this Nigerian debit card. Now, how do I know that this will work for this part of the world, Nigeria? Is because inside this credit card, so you can see the description. So if you recall, for those who joined earlier, where I said I have a habit of always putting things in my description because they help. So in this instance, they've put the description to their own template that they use. So looking at it, I can see it covers MasterCard. Sorry. I can see it covers MasterCard and Visa card. So I know it will work for me because MasterCard and Visa card is the same all over the world. It's not unique to us. The sequence at which they create the cards is the same all over the world. So I know that this template will work for me. Now I say next. I want to look at the patterns, so because I don't have to worry, they've created pattern. So I'm studying their pattern just to understand the logic that they're using. And if I come to edit, sorry, this is this thing they've asked me to bloat like this is not favoring me, but okay. So they have used what they call function processors. Function processors are another way. If you remember, we said we have keywords, regular expressions, and functions, and they've used function processors. Again, just to understand what they've done, you can see that they've explained what the function processor is going to be looking at. It's going to look for 14 to 16 digit numbers. Because these card processors have a logic behind how they process the cards, right? It's either 14 to 16. MasterCard is MasterCard will always start with 5. Visa card will always start with 4. I think they also have a logic with how they end. So you always see MasterCard go with 5353. I think Visa card will always go with 4 something like that. So they have a logic. It has nothing to do with you. That this logic must, I think MasterCard too will go with 5-4 in some cases, but it must always start with 5 for MasterCard, and for Visa card it always starts with 4. No matter what, it will always start with those. So there's a logic behind this thing, and they're saying that they've created that logic. Whether you format it or you don't format it, it would pass this test. So this is just for my own knowledge that they've created this pattern and I want to use it. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then they've put supporting documents. Looking through their supporting documents, I can see that they've covered for whether it is Nigerian, English or other language. So depending on your organization, if your organization deals with card details beyond even just English, this kind of SIT would help you find. And they've called out some key things that are shared within card conversation. So you hear card verification number, CVV. They're saying that if you see all these, terminologies too, remember the primary is that first one. So following this explanation where I gave that, if this, then this. So they're saying if that function, the function credit card function exists, then, and it has this supporting. So you're not just going to say if you see CVV number, then it is credit card. You can see CVV number, but it doesn't have. So they're saying if that function exists, which is 14 to 16 digits using the blah, 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 then, and it still has all of this, then it should match this sensitive information type, right? So again, this is just going through what they have here as their own. You can see they've put MasterCard, Visa, because most times when you want to communicate, it's not necessarily even, again, like I said, you're not doing this even only because of if somebody is trying to accelerate data. You're doing this even first of all to ensure that within the organization you're protecting the data. These are some of the terminologies the person will use. Oh, it's a MasterCard. Oh, it's a Visa card, while they are putting the card details. So you want to use those as supporting patterns that you use to detect expiration dates to function, and that's it. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel here. I'll just put an expire when we are testing, and we'll test this. So they've put their patterns here, and that's it. I just duplicated this, and I have it as my own sensitive information type. So what we've seen here is we've seen that you can create as many types of sensitive information type depending on the kind of data your organization is using or the data you want to protect. Most times the way a data protection program is done is you start small and you scale big. You can start from a particular department or start from a particular use case and then be scaling and be scaling. And as you're using it, becoming aware, the organization is learning, and then you can be growing like that. Nobody does big bang data protection program because it's a huge, intensive and capital intensive program that takes your time. So when you start small, from a small department, you can scale up like that. So the next thing we want to do is let's see if we can now, the sensitive information types we've done can work before we go and use them for any policies. So I'll just create regular documents. So we have this one. I'll save this. Put it somewhere I can find. I don't know why this is hanging. Oh God, where's this hanging? Okay, while that's hanging, let's do one more. So we've created sensitive information type for Nigerian driver's license, which use regular expression. We've created for employee ID. Let's just create a simple one for keyword while this process is trying to kill itself. Oh. My sister that asked me to expand my screen is becoming uncomfortable working like this.
So sorry, you can reduce it.
Don't worry, I'll see you. Sorry, let me just reduce it a bit. I'm struggling to navigate. Yeah. Okay. I hope this is okay for you. I reduced it by 1. So let's do a keyword. Let's say someone is in HR and the person sent an email to HR that they're not feeling fine, but they have particular type of sickness that should be confidential, and somebody in HR has sent that information out. So HR is saying, so there's a compliance flag on HR saying, hey, you know, a staff sent this information, it's sensitive, how come it's gone out? So let's create a keyword. So those kind of instances, you want to use keywords, because how do you tie what's unique about a sickness, right? So, but you also want to say, okay, these are confidential, so you can look for things. You use keyword dictionaries in those kind of scenarios, because it's more around the word. So let's say let's use keywords. So we've looked at regedit, we looked at function for card. Let's use key dictionary words. So we could call it maybe disease is hard. Sickness. Let's say flu, influenza. Maybe my spelling it goes straight. Okay. Okay, let's go over. Okay, so we've created that. We say done. Do we want any supporting? No, my system is slow today. Really? Maybe I've created it before, I don't know. Sorry, it's saying that that dictionary name exists. Sorry, maybe I've created it before. Let me see if it's saved. HR. No, I'll create it again. Sorry about that. HR. Let's see. Create my pattern. Primary. A dictionary. So I can say anywhere in the document, I can add a supporting okay. All right, so let's create. Now, this is just because we want to test. If it was in a real world, these documents will exist, right? So I don't have these documents. I want to create some of these documents. This will be my employee if I want to save, the thing hangs. What's happening? Sorry, this is what the live demo does. Just can be unnecessarily. Sorry, guys. I don't know. My system is just choosing to hang today. I don't know why it's doing this. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's happening. My system is really. Let me try another. Let me use Microsoft Word. It's like Notepad is not working for me today. Okay, so let's try an expired. I just want to create all the data. So let's try an expired card. Okay, let's do this document 2. Okay, so, and then let's do another one. Number of pages. Now I'm sure you understand why I'm doing this. I'm trying to create You can give me a driver's license number. Somebody call driver's license number for me. Don't worry. Whoever this is, we've gotten your driver's license. Okay, so this is AKW0 6968882. Okay, good. So we have 4 documents that we can play around with now. So let's go back. Any questions? We're going to move a bit faster. So we have our sensitive information type. I think at this point now, nobody should be worrying about sensitive information type. You should rather be building scenarios in your mind now on how you can use them. So we've done a whole lot, and people should now be able to we don't need this, okay. So where do we test? I think, how do we test this again? Data classification. Sorry, I'm also getting used to this new interface. As much as I said let's use it, it's confusing me. I'm also trying to get used to it. I'll go back to the old one. Okay, so we just want to test. So let's start with the employee, right? We just want to test if this will work. And then we move out of it. So this is how you test before you roll out, right? You click on the sensitive information type you want, and then you just click on test, and then we upload. So this is, fingers crossed, drum rolls. So I think that was test 1. Moment of truth, 1 to go. Whoa, detect. Okay. Why didn't we detect? Let's look at. Oh, sorry. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I want. This should work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I'm trying to find where this didn't work. That shouldn't make sense, but let me just try this again. Okay. All right. Okay. First test didn't work. Let's try another one. Let's see. Don't keep us here. Let's try card. Nigerian card. This is strange. None of them are working. What's happening? Okay. Let's try driver's license. Did I save it as? Oh no, something's wrong. What's happening?
Oh, Joy, would you try maybe changing the confidence level?
Something's wrong. Of all of them? Why?
See for any of them, because the one I created it worked.
Yeah.
So
And you dropped your confidence level.
mine was medium. Though I created for NIN, Nigerian NIN, was medium. I tested it with a document and it worked. I followed the exact same procedure.
Exactly. That's something. This is strange. Okay, so let's go back to drivers. At least I've done this over and over again. Strange that this is not working for anyone. Okay. Let me drop the confidence level. Although that doesn't make sense, but let's see. Edit. Next. This is strange. Okay. The way my system is acting today is not even encouraging. Taking forever. I don't know what's happening today. It's not even allowing me edit. Let me switch back to the old. Sorry. Let me go to the old overview. I don't know. Let me go to the old profile and let's see. And I can't even edit anything. It's strange. Hmm. Okay, so this doesn't make sense, but let's see. Sorry about the delay, guys, but this is very interesting. But has anybody tried, as we were going through the class, even though I would like what we're sharing to work. Okay, let's test again. Still showing confidence high. Still showing high. Okay, why? Something is wrong. Even when I've changed it, it's not working. Are you kidding me? Wow. Jesus Christ, something's wrong. So it's worked for driver's license. Like I said, I don't know what's happening to the portal. So you can see that we matched the driver's license, right? Don't know why it's doing what it's doing anyway. Let's try the card one now. I don't know why it's doing what it's doing, but let's try card. Okay. Let me drop this also. Don't know why. Okay, so this is almost a challenging. This is challenging the question of Sazi put, where if we alter in a card with sentence. I'm curious about this, and I'll spend some time on it. But let me remove the words and then see. But I'm curious to know. It should be able to see that this is still a card and block. But let me remove all of this, because if somebody is trying to infiltrate shared leakage, that's one way they can do it. So it should be able to 4, 5. Okay. So I'm going to spend some time to understand because I'm curious. If I split this, if I'm trying to share someone's credit card and beat the system, it's almost looking like if I put words in between, I can beat the system, and it shouldn't. So I'm going to spend time to find. But if you just type the credit card explicitly, it detects it. But when you try to trick the system, it's bypassing it. It shouldn't. And that's gotten me curious. I'll spend some time on it to find out what's happening. Because as security people, our job is to make sure that we don't allow people beat the system. So I need to find out what why that worked, why that I could not detect that somebody was passing a credit card in a document, even though the person has splitted it. I will look at.
Is there no penetration testing for 365?
There is, but this has nothing to do with penetration testing. This is data. The essence for data protection is somebody could just copy the PAN, paste in a chat. You should be able to detect that is. So the option, the scenario you painted is I'm an insider threat. I have access to this data, but I don't want the system to know that I'm sharing somebody's PAN. So I decode it with words in between. I'm saying because it's using the same sequence, it should find that that's still a card. But what we saw here was that it did not find. So I'm going to pay more attention to why it didn't find that and then see if there's a way. Maybe there's something we didn't do right, but it should be able to detect that it's still the sequence, the 1416 sequence, and be able to detect it, even if the person had created decode words in between to break the pattern.
Can we try with maybe try it with the driver's license as well? Maybe put something in between the numbers and see if it would work.
For which one, sorry?
Maybe for the driver's license.
The driver's license worked.
No, maybe we'll try the same scenario whereby you put something in between the numbers and see if it will pass.
It will pass for driver's license because the driver's license reg edict was very clear. He said that the first 3 letters should be alphabets and the function should be numbers. So the moment you break that, it won't work. But in the case of card, it's about the function, the credit card sequencing. So it should be able to see that the first 4 letters was the sequence of a credit card.
So maybe it has to be a specific number. Maybe like for some credit card that starts with 4500, maybe you have to be specific about the numbers.
No, you're not getting it. It's not about specific. What we did was we put a credit card number, but we put words in between. I'm saying that if this is a live environment, somebody has bypassed the security. So we should be curious on why our sensitive information type could not detect the sequence, because the sequence was still a MasterCard sequence. Sorry, that was a Visa card, by the way. It was still the Visa card sequence. It had the 445 and it had the last numbers that were the Visa card sequence, even though the person had put words in between. So I'm saying that I'm curious to know how this SIT could not detect that that was still a card. If we use that same method, go to any other SIT we've created and put words, it won't work because our reg expression is very clear on a sequence. The reg expression for card is also clear, but it didn't detect that somebody was trying to beat the system. I don't know if anybody's following what we're doing here, just so that I want to make sure we're carrying everybody along. Because this is a live demo, so this is your reality. This is not just the regular, oh, you come and train and go. This is the kind of thing you will see in real life where you have a scenario you need to create, and then for some reason you find out that what you have created can be bypassed. So what we're seeing here is that the sequence for credit card, we can bypass it if we put words in between, and that shouldn't be. So we need to understand our patterns and how we've created them, because you could just create, it detects it, but then somebody finds a way to beat the system, and then tomorrow there's a data breach, they're going to come back to you as a compliance person. So you want to make sure that whatever pattern you're using is accurate and can detect the sequence. So we've tested for the driver's license.
Sorry, Joy, so I feel like it might be with the regix. So maybe the regix is saying it has to follow this sequence. So maybe there's a way we can tweak it, saying that even if it's not side by side, so long as you notice the sequence, whether it's so long as you feel it, then you should spot it. So probably that regix is rigid to say it's just like this. So there's a way to tweak it that says even if, so long as you see this, whether there's something in between, spot it regardless. So I feel like that's the problem.
No.
So I don't know how to work my way around it.
No, I'm totally agreeing with you. That's the problem. But I'm saying I'm now curious to know how to solve the problem, because that's a potential data breach. I'm saying that I like what we found out now, because that's a way a system can be bypassed in real life. If you create a regedict for card and use the strict sequencing, somebody who wants to still infiltrate the system can do so. You would be confident as a compliance officer saying that I have a regedict, right? But you have not known that there's a way to bypass the system. So that's where I'm going to. I'm trying to say that it's not a problem, rather it's an option for us to solve a. It's not that we didn't get it, rather, but we have seen something we can solve, and we can all tweet about it or talk about it and showcase our knowledge. I'm curious, and I'm going to definitely write an article about this, because this is cool, right? In reality, people want to beat the system, so I like this. So I like that we found this, and we can spend time in finding how to fix this. But let's make progress. I don't think it's not an issue, because we can see that when we create custom sensitive labels, it works, but we found something that we can solve. All right. Now, once you've created your SITs, you want to create your labels. So that takes us to data loss prevention, right? This is why the new one is better. The old one just
takes
care.
Screen.
Oh, the screen again, sorry. Let me know if it's... I think this should be better, right?
It's better.
Okay. Now we want to... So what we did was we created SITs. We've played with it. I like the fact that we spent over hours on it, but then everybody understands what it is. Right now we want to now create a label, and the labels are I think labels are the most easiest when you are in this category. So those of you that are the non-technical compliance people who need to define and develop, I think labels are not that they're easiest, but they're one of the easiest for the compliance administrator to create, because with labels, you're not doing anything, just saying append this. Where label is a bit complex is for the people in the non-technical, because they need to make sure that they're matching the right labels to a particular business case. So without too many think around it, label is just straightforward. It's either it is confidential. These are just what labels are. That's all. There's no too much story in what label is. I think it's one of the most easiest thing to create. So display is what will you show the users when they look at it, or when they see it, will you show? So you can say, if it's a HR, if you are doing it specific to a team, you can now name it like this. But all of these things are not, again, I repeat, they are not for you, the technical compliance administrator, to do. It's what's defined. It's almost like IT policy that will say create a policy that 7 characters, minimum of 7 characters, alphanumeric, all those things. It's not the person in IT that just chose to make passwords that complex, right? It was defined in a policy. So that's how labels are. Labels will be defined and passed down to you to create. Your job is just to come here and create Then what would the user see? So probably confidential will say, maybe you want to say anything, do not share anything that your organization wants to use to identify this. For this, you want to put policies, you want to type colors to it. It's one of the most easiest function, creating labels. There's no too much story. Now, when you create your labels, you now want to define the scope, right? So you want to say, you want to use the labels, right, on Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You want to use it on email. You want to use it on meetings. This is now where you define. Again, in the planning of the labeling, that's where the guys who are in this category do all the work for you. It's not your job as the implementer, as this category, the compliance administrator, the person configuring, to worry about whether it needs to be for email. They will say, so if the use case is we want to create a data protection plan for the guys in finance and the guys in treasury, or the guys in the trading department, right? They will come up with what the label names are, they'll come up with what the actions are, and then all you're just doing is following that approval, right? And this is it. Again, to apply sensitive label to Teams, SharePoint groups, you must first complete the steps to enable the feature. Okay, so this is one functionality I didn't enable. Sorry, because it's a test environment. And this, you can also apply this to databases. You can create labels that you apply to different types of databases. Databases are also known as data assets. Who can access and view the labeled items? Do you want the items to have content marking? So here we select, you should have footer. So this is where you see confidential most times in some documents. Legal people, I think they like that thing where you just see, maybe just watermark confidential. Yeah. And then you control who has access to it. That's all. And this is where you assign the permissions, right? So again, this goes back to where I'm saying the identity, role-based access control. Depending on what has been mapped here, the people in the identity security are the ones that will create the groups for you. And all you're just doing is coming here and picking up the group that needs to use that label. Let me see.
Please throw more light on what the users and groups. I didn't get what you're saying.
Users and groups are who should I assign this thing to? Data protection in an organization is not a one-size-fits-all program. Never do that, right? This is for who. That's why I said it's more of a non-implementation work than an implementation work. Once you have the planning done right, the person who is implementing it, this is one of the most easiest things to do, right? But it needs to be defined in the organization who has what. So if you have a confidential label, are they saying that confidential label should be used by everybody in the organization? If yes, how do you assign it to everybody? If you're an organization of 10,000, are you going to come and be typing users' name one by one? No. So you put them in a group. Right, and that's why I'm saying that it's not, as a data protection person, it's not your headache because you don't manage user identity. User identity is managed by the identity department. And so all you'll be saying is that we want to apply a policy to everybody in the organization. They will tell you the group that you should use. We want to apply a policy to everybody in HR. They will tell you what the group is. And if they don't have a group, they'll create a new group for you. Your job is to just come here. And if I wanted to apply to one user, these are users that are individual. I'm saying, imagine an organization that has 10,000. Will you be clicking users one by one? No. So you actually create a group. So for instance, I have a group called, yeah, so this is a group this is a group that has people inside, and I can want to apply to this group. So what I'm saying is that everybody who is inside this group, assign them the label confidential that I just created. Did that help you?
Yeah, so basically what I understood is labels, like just because I'm in the organization, I cannot automatically maybe mark a document as confidential or not confidential, except I was given like the right to use that label for a document.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank
So
you.
people only see labels because you have given them permission at the back end. So somebody might be seeing a confidential label and the next person sitting beside him or her is not seeing that confidential label.
We can all see this because we're all given the rights, like when
At
we're
the back
creating
end.
this account.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Now, typically, what would that mean? It doesn't make sense if somebody is in an organization and not seeing the label. So where you will know where there's a problem is if an email was sent with that label. So maybe the CEO sent an email and classified it confidential, right? And everybody in the organization is supposed to, because there are two ways to labeling. You can give label from where I see it so that I use it, and give labels of that I can consume documents that have this classification. So we've seen cases where two people are sitting down, someone says, I can't read this email that was sent. Another person is saying, I can read it. What that will mean for you as an administrator is to come back to look at the permissions that you've given and say, is this person in the right group? So that's typically where you will see that scenario. Or someone will come and say, I want to label something confidential. I can't see it. And then when you come here, you see that nothing is wrong with the rule. So your first level of troubleshooting is to say, is this person a member of the group that was assigned to see this label or to consume this label? And then that's where you take it up from in your troubleshooting. Because, like I said, you can see that it's a very pretty straightforward task. There's no scenario in creating label. It's as easy as it is. Put the name of the label, define the priority, put descriptions, put color. Where do you want it applied? So this is files, emails, meetings. Database, if you're using it in database. Control who has access. Do you want the label to be used as a watermark on documents, or do you want the label to just be a label that will be appended to the metadata of the document, right? So sometimes you don't even see that a document has been protected just by looking at the document. It's embedded in the metadata of the document, or you want it to be bold there. Who has access to permissions? So this one, permissions to on let users decide. So for instance, do you want to, how will I put it? When you append this label, there are two things. This is the one I was talking about, consuming. So do you want people to decide who has access to? So if I use a confidential label and I send it to you, do you have access to also consume it? I can use a confidential label, send it to you, and you are still unable to read it because you don't have access to read documents that have been tagged confidential. So there are two sides to it. That's what I want us to understand. I have access to use a label, and I have access to read from a document that has been labeled. Is that clear? I always want to make sure.
If you're not in the initial plan to have access and a document is sent, can you request access to that document maybe for a one-time purpose?
No. So when you say request, like from the document, see like a request document, say grant me access, the way SharePoint sites will do it. No. So look at here. So in this place, it said configure access control settings. We can assign the permissions now, or we can say let users decide. So assign now would be that we'll say, which is what we did, everybody that is in this group, or we can say let users decide. So when I am sending the document, I can say that when I'm using this confidential level, I can now say do not be able to forward it, or you can read it for few minutes, you can use it for XYZ period and it will expire. The one of I got a document that had a label and I don't have access to it. I want to request. There's no button on the document. You either have to raise the service desk ticket with your organization or whatever to say, oh, I got this document and I don't have, because typically you shouldn't be able to. So if probably somebody sent you a document and just assume that, oh, you're supposed to have rights to be able to read it and you don't have, then the design for it is so that you can raise a ticket, get the right approval, and then be given. Because by default in a data security strategy, if you don't have access, it's because the organization did not want you. So if it is by omission that you don't have it, then they want it recorded somewhere. And this is based on ITIL governance that, oh, so person requested for access to this label and this was the approval process and given. So I think is by security control design that is done that way. That it's not like there's a button you can click. Unlike SharePoint site, I don't know if you've seen that scenario where if someone gives you a document to a site, you can request for access, it goes to the owner of the document and the person approves, and then you find out that you have access to the document. But with labeling and security data protection, it's not like that. You need to request, then they come to the back end and put you in the group that has access to that label or that protections or sensitivity.
Okay, please, just for more context before you go ahead. So the other option that has to do with let users assign permissions, is that the one that gives someone, even when you are not on the group that has permission to use the label? So if I click on let users assign permission, doesn't mean if I forward, okay, basically I'm trying to say, how do I give somebody?
Yes, so at that point, it's no more being controlled by a group. It's now we're saying that so everybody will see the label, but they will decide what people will do. So when I'm sending a confidential, I will not be the one to say that do not enforce. Like, so you can see it. I can say, oh, in Outlook, I can enable this, that do not forward. So whenever I use it, users are the one that will now be defining what will happen.
No, you don't. What I'm saying now is, so if you are picking that option and everybody's seeing the label, it means can everybody automatically create? Or when I'm just trying to say, like, what's the difference between, okay, this group now, for the first one I understood that if I'm creating it and then I'm adding the names, it means everybody can obviously use the labels. But for the one that I only want this person to be able to read a labeled information, but you can't create one and you can't apply it. So how do I do that? Is it through this other option?
Sorry, I didn't understand your question, but let me just try and respond. And if that doesn't, you ask it again. Users don't create labels. Okay? Users will never have the ability to create labels. But users can enforce the use of a label, decide the type of label they want to use, or users can be forced through auto labeling. I just wanted to put that out there because it seemed like that needed to be said to manage some of the things I'm thinking you're asking, because like I said, I didn't understand. So back to this. The first one is I'm pushing this to everybody. So they will use this label and the action of this label will be this. They won't have the luxury of deciding what happens to the label. They will just, when they click confidential, it will action according to how we want it. Or I will decide for users to decide the permissions that they want. So when a user uses confidential, the user can say, even though it's confidential, it should not use do not forward. So the person can still forward it. The recipient can still forward it. When you're using label, there's me that we're all in the organization. We received the confidential label. I created a Word document. I appended confidential to it. The moment I appended confidential to it, whatever was behind that confidential or configured as the action confidential should do would be done on that document, irrespective of who is receiving it. So that's why, like Osade said, I might receive it and then I don't have the ability to consume it. Then my response would be, I can't read it. I might receive it and have the ability to consume it and want to forward it, and I cannot forward because that's the action there. But we're saying that we can create a label and say this label, even though we're pushing it to everybody, we want the users to decide what happens, who has permission. So when the user is appending the label, the user will say, I don't want this label to have do not forward. Even though it's carrying confidential, I don't want it to have do not forward. Or I want it to have do not forward. So you can see if I select this and I don't select this option, the users will not be able to define what the label can do. The users will be able to define what the label can do. Even me myself, I'm mixing it up. And so when they append the label, I open a document, I append confidential to it. Then I will select the permission. I will say users can forward, users cannot forward. I'm the one going to be saying what the confidential action will happen on the label. Did that answer? If not, you can repeat the question again, because like I said, I didn't understand it, but I just wanted to explain what I thought it was.
Okay, so let me try and give you more context. So someone applied for a job, and then obviously I'm not in the organization, but then probably my email is in the cycle or in their database, and then I receive an email saying confidential, this email is meant for only you, do not forward, and the rest. So what I'm saying is, I was not in that organization, but I got that labeled information, that labeled email. So basically my question was, you said there were two scenarios: people that can see these labels and can append it to document, and then those that, yes, you saw it, but you cannot consume. So I'm saying, if I was in an organization, I want to send a similar email to somebody, I only want the person to be able to read the message. Like, what do you do when you are configuring such labels, aside from the one that people in my organization can obviously append if they want to? That was like the scenario I was trying to paint. So I'm not in the organization, I just get the confidential.
This is a totally different thing from the first one. In this scenario, that's what I'm saying. In defining data labels, an organization can say, this is our labels that people should use anytime they're sending XYZ type of documents. And so the moment they've defined that, you will see what the label can do. The labels could be read only, the labels could be encrypt, the labels could be do not forward. And so you will now know which type of label appends to the kind of thing I want to do. So I'm sending an information to somebody who is not in the organization, and I want her to be able to read it. I don't want her to forward it. I will see the type of label. But what we're explaining here is, we're saying this is how you create labels and define what the labels can do. How the users use the label is a different use case. If I see a label and my organization has defined that this label is do not forward, it means that the moment I append it to my document, anybody that receives my document cannot forward that email, because the label that was created for us in the organization already carries the action do not forward.
I understand. It's because you made the statement of you can receive such labels, information, and then you cannot consume it. And then I was just thinking, for me to receive it, it means it was intentional. So why can't I view it even if I'm not using it? That was why I got confused.
I receive a email and not be able to consume it because you don't have the right permissions in the organization. It's possible. That you received an email could be out of error. Two people could have the same name, and I wanted to select a Miriam Emedom, and I selected a Miriam Oyakilome, and then the mail came to you. That you received an email does not necessarily mean
were still set behind.
Yeah, that you received an email does not necessarily mean you have the permission to read the email. If it has data, if it has the right data protection on it. Are you getting it? We're not talking about normal email that somebody just sent that doesn't have data protection and data label. You read it now. Will you close your eye? We're talking in the context of data protection. If I use a label on a document and you, the recipient, is not supposed to receive because you are not under the category of people that has been allowed to consume it, you will not. So that's why if you look at here, when we selected, if you go access control settings, assign permissions now, it allowed us to put group. So if you're not in this group, you can't consume. Now, if we change here and say, let the users decide, So at this point, when you're sending it, what we have put here is that we have put the risk on the user. If this is the kind of label we push out, right, even though it's carrying confidential, and Miriam now sends it to Joy, she wanted to send it to Osaze, she sends it to Joy, right? Because in that email, in this label, we have put the power on the user. I would be able to read it because there's nothing here that stops me from being, it has said that let the users decide what they want to do. So it means that anybody who receives this email can read it, but the action will be based on what you decide. So it will not be, are you saying do not forward? Are you saying encrypt? Are you getting, the power has been given to you, the sender, not at the back end.
Please, I'm just trying to understand this part, because if you have a confidential document, assuming you're sending a statement of account, and you're sending to a particular user, and it from your end is confidential, are you saying whoever you're sending it to can decide who sees it and how it's being used and all that? So why is it confidential from the start if the next person can decide what to do with
makes a document? So let me ask you back, what will make a document confidential? Is it because you feel it, or is it because you gave it some form of metadata that tells it confidential? So that's why I tell people that you feel that because it is financial statement, it is confidential. In the world of data security, it's not confidential. What makes a document confidential is the label you put on the document. It's not the feeling. It's not because I think this is a financial statement, so when I'm sending it to you, Joy, it is confidential. No. That's what happens in the normal layman world. In the world of cybersecurity, what makes a document confidential is what you have appended to that document's metadata. So I want us to start from there. So you opened your email, you took a financial statement and you sent it to me and said confidential. You have left it at my discretion. If I treat it as confidential, you don't know. But we're saying that in data security, because we want to be able to put the life cycle of our data, we're saying that if we understand that, in our organizations, we deal with people's financial statement and there'll be need for them to send it across to people both in and out. What do? We're saying the first thing is to identify that document and give it a sensitive information type. So we classify them financial statements, look for whatever, get them, test it is working. Then we now create a label that we will call confidential. That label, we will now append that label to a policy, which is where we're going to. I'm saying just putting a label, not putting anything on a document does not make it confidential in the world of data security. It's only mouth. In the world of data security, it is the label and the policy that tell you whether that document is actually confidential, as it has said. Because you could put a label called public, meanwhile the content is confidential.
So basically, the label confidential would not impact on the restriction that it gets on the other end from the second user.
Yes, it is the action of what you have told the label to do. Are you following me, please?
I'm trying to, yes.
See, if I produce a financial statement document and I put confidential across it and I send to you, I have labeled that document confidential. What I am telling you is, Osaze, I've given you a confidential document, right? So that when you receive it, even you, with the cautiousness of where you are, you'll be like, this is confidential. The label told you it was confidential. But what you would do with it is left at your discretion. Do you agree with that?
Okay, sorry to take you back again. So assuming the accounts department is sending the maybe HR department maybe a pay stub or something, and that document the account department has labeled it as confidential, and then the HR receives it and by error sends it to another member of the team, and that member now has access. Are you saying it is the HR department would determine what the next person can do with it, whether it's confidential or not. So the whole burden of security is now on the HR and has left the account department that sent it.
The answer is yes and no. Again, in the world of tech, we spend energy in design because of what you said, building use cases. So in this scenario you have painted, the question would be, who do we want to be responsible? If finance says anything I send out, I don't want, because I know somebody can make error. The moment I send it out, this is the type of action I want. Then they come to you, they define it. I want to have a label that the action behind that label is do not forward. Or the action behind that label is encrypt. Or the action behind that label is XYZ. And I want this label to be used by only XYZ department. So you see, I'm breaking it down. Then that's how you will create it. So at that point, if I receive it in HR, even if I mistakenly forward it to you, it won't even forward because the action on it is saying do not forward. Now, if the action on it is not do not forward, it means that the risk level was increased. It means that whoever was sending it, even though it was sending confidential, was trusting that when you receive it, you will not forward. That's what I'm saying. So what the label will do for us is that it will tell us that there's a confidential document, but that confidential document was forwarded. So that's where the data lifecycle and dashboard will show you. So we'll be seeing that we have documents labeled as confidential, but we're seeing that they go out. Why? And then we can trace, it's from HR, it's from Joy in HR. Why is Joy in HR always sending confidential documents to personal email? Based on that, we can now review our policy and come back and say, okay, you know what? Let's create an additional policy action that says that you cannot forward. But security is at different levels. It depends on what your use case is. The concept of label is first of all to be able to understand the kind of documents you're dealing with and put some form of identification on the document. So if we say confidential, if we say private, if we say public, already like that, we can understand how the organization is playing around with data. If you look at your dashboard and you're seeing lots of confidential documents being sent outside, what that tells you is that we have lots of sensitive information that we think are not being shared, but are shared. So you can now come back and say, what do we do next? Okay, we can have maybe 3 types of confidential. We can have confidential, do not forward, have confidential forward, have confidential, do not print. You can have all sorts of label. And then at that point, when I'm sending a document to you in HR, I now know that because there's a tendency for you to want to forward, and this particular one, I don't want you to forward, I will use confidential, do not forward. And so this is where it talks about assigning it by yourself or telling the users to. So you can create these labels at the back that enforce what will happen, or say let the users decide what will happen. When I'm appending it, I will now say confidential and enable this. So at the user end, which I don't have now, this backend we're seeing, at the user end, in your Outlook, you will see the confidential label. And when you append it, it will ask you which permissions do you want. I will select do not forward. But if we want everything to happen at the backend without users enforcing, we will now define it and say, maybe let's have confidential encrypt, let's have confidential no encryption, let's have confidential do not forward. But security is at different levels. Security is not a one size fits all. I don't know if that helped you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So as easy as labeling is, the complexity in it is in your use case. So you need to sit down and define your use cases, the scenarios in your organization. Data protection is continuous in every organization. It's not a one size fits all. Like when you define labels, you need to sit down, pay attention to your dashboard, look at the recommendations, what's happening. Oh, lots of data are going out, then this is what we need to do. Lots of confidential data. But from a label perspective, you can start the adoption in your organization from there. That's what we're trying to achieve here. Create your simple labels, categorize it, don't put anything too serious. That's how I've deployed it over the years for organizations. Start with very simple, public, confidential, highly confidential, restricted, and then just publish them out. Once you do that, users will see them in their, I think I've selected something that is forcing this. Sorry, just trying to allow this pass. Okay, controller says, I've lost my line of thought. Yeah, my point is, start with basic labels, push them out to everybody. Once you push out these labels to everybody, then you can now see on the dashboard how people are using your labels, and you can, based on that, now begin to define the protection on the labels. And that helps you to also understand what you're doing. So this is watermarks if it's needed. Some departments would enforce this. This is auto label. So this is where it forces that every document that is created would have a label. So in auto labeling, you will force, so even though you've created the label, you're saying that any document that is created XYZ must use this label. This is where auto label. So it will now ask you, what's the condition that you want to use for this label? So again, in auto labeling, you can force users by appending it, or you can force them, they will not be able to send that document. So you can say, I want to use auto labeling in email. Anytime I create an email, I must put a label. Now, it doesn't matter whether it is confidential or anything, but you just say that we don't want any document to leave the organization without labeling. Like I said, those are the ways you start the maturity. Once people are used to labeling, now whether they call it confidential, private, public, it doesn't matter, but it comes into your purview dashboard, and you can now begin to see the type of data that is being handled in the organization, and then you can put an underlying protection on it, or you can use conditions to detect, how you want to create those labels if you want to go more granular. I don't want auto label. Now this is where you put protection. I don't think I have these settings on my own, but this is where you apply to teams, group sites, and protection is where you say encrypt, do not forward to external, use a type of conditional access policy. This is not necessary. This is more around database. You can see it's still in preview. It's not, you don't necessarily need to do with that. And then you've practically created your label. So for me, I feel label is one of the most simplest things to drive your adoption. You don't need to make your labels complex. Just create normal labels, public, sensitive, confidential, and just push it. And then now say enforce auto labeling. Auto labeling enforcement is not the one that you enforce. You say you recommend to users. I'll go back again for those who didn't see it. Under the enforce, there was a place that says recommend, enforce, but recommend. So what it's saying is that it will not append it, but it will force you to append a label. The reason for this is that it will always just show on your dashboard documents that are being used in the organization, and people can begin to say, oh, we have lots of files, emails that are going out labeled as public, or we have lots of files, emails going out labeled as this. How do we ensure that we are compliant? Now, once you've created your label, you want to publish it. Do I still have people in the class? Let me know if I'm talking to myself. Okay.
Yeah, we are.
All right. Okay. Now, Creating your label does not action it. What you just did was back end. You create your label, it's not yet working. You just told it what to do. Yes, it is when you publish it, it now goes into motion. So I want to publish. I'm not going to, because this is a live environment. I'm not going to cause problem. Okay, let's try. So you can see here that you will see all the types of labels. Miriam, are you still on the call? I think this is where I was confusing you a bit. So you see that permission side. Miriam, are you on the call? I just want to be sure that
I'm still on the call.
So the side we were talking about permission, that other side was on the label itself from a usage perspective, right? The publishing is the side that was addressing what's his name? Sorry, the permission that was there was on a consuming, how to consume the label. But this side is who should receive this label. So at this point, if we don't publish it, then people will not be able to see it. I hope I'm not confusing her the more. At this point, this is who can work on your labels, who can edit your labels. Again, this is where your identity security will be interested. Publish. So this is who will see the label. So that one will say, if you get the label, what can you do? Can you read, print, forward? This is who would even see the label to use it. So that's why I was saying that two people can sit down and I can say, I am not seeing confidential label. It's because I'm not in this group here. It's when you publish, this is the one. So if I don't see confidential on my Outlook or my Word, it's because I was not in this group that was added. But if
Sorry to bother you again.
No, you're not bothering me. That's the essence for the class.
Okay, so you see that part where you say you when you create a document and you make it confidential and you set up restriction on that document, and then you send it, and you say the person you're sending it to can determine what they can do with it. Is it possible that when you send it from party A to party B, and you as a party A member, you put some certain restriction, party B can go ahead and edit those restrictions that you've put there? Is that possible?
No. That's why I'm saying that if you don't put restriction, then I can decide what I want to do with the document. That's what I'm saying. Even though you have labeled it confidential, I'm saying that label and the protection are two different things. So you labeled it confidential, but it did not have any restriction on it. Then when it comes to me, even though it's carrying confidential, I can do whatever. But if you label it confidential and then you now put a restriction and say do not forward, then when it comes to me, I cannot do anything I like, because at that point it's the action that you have put on the label that I have to adhere to as a user identity.
So even though you sent it to me and you say I can do whatever I like, but whatever restriction you put from your end, I cannot alternate at all.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Now I understand it.
Yeah. So the other part is, I'm saying that as a human being, you have your free will, but technology rides over free will when we are doing data security. So that's where technology is coming to help us, because I can get something confidential and still decide to share it. But if there's technology on top of it, then I'm restricted based on what the technology has said I should do. Now, once the policy setting, users must provide a justification. All of these things are, again, based on what your policy has defined. Permit me to please. Okay. After I also stop recording, because if taxed us, if we exceed the time, we should stop recording. I would stop recording so that we can continue the class.